everyone, welcome to Overcharge Plasma Gaming. Today we have a post Battle for Britain vlog with Gavin. Say hi, Gavin.
Hi.
So Gavin was not at the pre-vlog, he was working that day, I believe, but he's the only one of the OPT hosts that can make it this week, really.
Yeah.
And we just had to kind of, work with the numbers that we got. So I'd love to have had Innes in here as one of the team captains and Dave and Matty, but it just didn't quite work out in the end. But hey ho,
Yeah.
we're going to have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you can expect from us tonight is a quick breakdown of our lists. Just to recap, Gavin wasn't on the pre-vlog show, so we don't know what he was playing. It's dirty AdMech, but apart from that,
Yeah, as the non-existent AdMech player which couldn't go down. Thanks, Dave.
yeah, Dave was throwing shade there, and yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, go watch the pre-vlog and
Watch the pre-event vlog.
yeah. If nothing else, the views help me, and I would appreciate it very much. But yeah, so we'll break down our lists. We'll talk about the matches we had, any kind of notable experiences and learning lessons that we have from those matchups. Gavin and I actually played in round 3, and I have a few things to say about that game, some learning lessons going forward. And then we'll kind of talk about our games going forward and any changes to our lists and what we're going to kind of do at our next events or the next major events that we're going to. So it's pretty chill. Again, we're not going to go into too much detail into the opponents' lists, as some people may want to keep their tech secret. Mostly we can't remember what they ran exactly when it gets onto Warlord traits and relics, but we've got a pretty good idea of what we faced and the nightmares it caused us.
We'll have the basic kind of principles off the list, like roughly what's in there, but like we're not going into minutiae of it. Obviously, that's people's own personal thing. So
yeah, it's different if it's a public Battlescribe event. I think even though this was hosted by a Tournament Keeper, I'm not sure how public the event is. So
yeah.
you may or may not be able to find stuff. Gavin, why don't you break down your list, as this is new content.
Yeah. So I was running AdMech, filthy.
And that's the call, everyone.
Yeah, that's it. That's the breakdown. So I was running 2 detachments. One was a battalion, running 3 big blobs of infantry, 2 of rangers, 1 of vanguard, 3 units of infiltrators, a min squad of Taraxi sterilizers, and then 2 characters. Manipulus and a marshal who had my warlord traits, and I'd given them like fallback and shoot. I'd given one of my ranger squads the ability to give out being able to move and fire heavy weapons without penalty, things like that. And then my second detachment, that was Lucius, by the way, so very tanky, very survivable, +1 save against 1 damage weapons, and gets all the buffs for like transhuman physiology, etc, etc. And then my second detachment was of my vehicles, so I had 3 planes, 2 Stratoraptors and a Fuselav, and then 3 units of 2 Iron Strider Bellistari with las cannons. I had 1 with autocannon just for points because I couldn't fit it in otherwise with the las cannon. But turns out the autocannon was very useful in the actual event, so I think I'll be keeping it. When I'd been planning my list out pre-event, I'd spoken to a few people and they're like, "Oh, why not take that second detachment as Mars?" But there's a bit of a mix-up when I submitted it, and I didn't get the chance to check the list over after we'd submitted it. But ended up being submitted as a Data Horde Forge World, which is the one that allows a 6-up Feel No Pain to all damage, and reroll all hit rolls when within half range of the weapon. Turns out that was also a really good choice. It saved me in a lot of matches where I might have been in trouble if I'd just been Mars. Despite the fact Mars gives you a lot of utility in the game.
Yeah, Mars would certainly help your las cannons and stuff hit, but it wouldn't really help your stubbers and stuff. And stubbers, that extra chip damage can go quite a long way in certain matchups.
And to be honest, the las cannons as well. Yeah, it helps the las cannons with like the rerolls, and it helps with the reroll damage. But to be honest, I was moving my chickens that fast anyway. it wasn't actually making a big difference because I was getting within half range pretty quickly and getting the rerolls anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I was running a Nurgle Demons list with some Thousand Suns elements, so I had a Great Unclean one with a 4-up Field of Pain as his exalted trait. He had the Bell and the Bioblade, and I had Horticulus Slimix and Epidemius. 3 squads of Nurglings, the little pricks that they are. They will either fall over to a stiff freeze or it will take a Gale Force Hurricane to get rid of them. No between. Like, honestly, they're amazing.
yeah.
Then I had 2 squads of 7 beasts of Nurgle and 1 squad of 8. They're super tanky, they're frogs, they're very, very memeable. And they're just happy little guys who are just happy to get shot, and it's amazing. Who can intervene and do mortal wounds, and it's just Nurgly goodness. Then they had 2 squads of Nurgle Furies to round up the demons. In the Thousand Suns, it was Cult of Magic, Aramin with Siege's Firestorm, Gaze of Hate, and Baleful Devolution, which is an anti-horde spell.
Yeah.
Then there was again the Exalted Sorcerer with a devastating sorcery warlord trait, so you could reroll a smite or witchcraft spell per turn, which came in handy quite a lot. They had Astral Blast for being Cult of Magic, as well as Doombolt and Twist of Fate, which is like Death Hex. Then the rubrics, so he had the Retari upgrade, I think it is, which allows him to cast 3 spells every turn. So basically, both characters can cast 3 damaging spells every turn with good rerolls. So that's the damage output at range. Very handy in that list. It's my only answer to planes, which should kill planes. If not, I'm going to do Warp Ritual, Gavin. 4-up Feel No Pain later. Then the rubrics, they had Double Move and Cacodomic Curse, which is like a 18-inch range spell, -1 strength to the target's guns, which did come up once in the event and probably saved my bacon in that situation. So they had like Aspiring Magister or some other kind of upgrade to let the sorcerer know 1 additional power. So that was a good little bit of flexibility. Yeah, and that was it. My job in the team was to take the bad matchups and get 8 points, ideally, or mission depending, 5 points or 2 points. Gavin.
I had completely the other end of the bargain, which was, here, Gavin, have the list that like basically the other team wants you to face, and just get as many points from it as possible.
Your list was
Kill
Gavin,
Ricky, I'll do that.
Gavin, get 20, or you're buying us all drinks.
I didn't actually get 20 all tournaments, so.
Oh, you must have been many rounds later. But yeah, no, it was. So, how did you find the event? Was it good?
The event was really good. We kind of went in with an expectation as a team that basically it's the best in the country, some of the best guys in the world. We knew we weren't going to do fantastically, but it's like, let's give a good representation of ourselves. Try and do well. The main takeaway was work together as a team to try and get the best result possible. And we came away feeling quite satisfied, I think. I just want to give a big shout out to all my teammates. They played amazingly and in some very difficult matchups. And also to Ricky for doing pairings for us. Obviously, for some of the guys, it was quite new doing the pairing situations, so it's just trying to sort out matrices and things like that, just sorting it all out. So yeah, so the event all went well. I was really pleased with my results. Obviously, just trying to help the team out, get as many points as possible, because that was my role. Just try and get the high points, just to try and like make up any shortcomings we had in other areas in bad matchups. So
yeah, so for me, it was a really awesome event. It's the first time doing like what I would call proper size teams. We've done 4-person teams in Scotland before, but never really 6 or 8, and that's when the pairings can start to get interesting, and you have to worry about like things like defender lists. Whereas in 4-person teams, you just take 4 kill teams and go. You just get points and then try and win the round, and that's really kind of the end of the tactics.
Yeah, I mean, me and you have played. I've played an 8-man team event on TTS before.
Yep.
This is very different. But obviously, me and you played in the 5-man team event on TTS, and even going from 5-man to 6-man teams, it makes a big difference. Just trying to work out when you're doing stuff. So
Also, playing it, physically is a lot different.
yeah,
Because when you're doing it online, you've got like a week or 10 days to do your games, so
yeah, and
you
you
know
can
going
sit and
into your
plan
game.
out every move.
Yeah, going into your game, I need like 5 points to win this round, rather than if you're like. So for me, it was a case of I need 5 points. I needed 5 points off of Gavin to win the round for the team. That was our goal going into that game for in round 3 for me, was Chris, get 5 points. And I set myself up to do that. I was going to do that, and then I made one mistake, which we'll get to later on in our game by game breakdown. But the thing is that we had other matchups that swung against us a little bit, but other matchups that swung for us. So it could have been Innes walking over to me, Chris, we need you to get 8 points all of a sudden. I'm like, oh, okay. Rather than
Yeah,
in TTS, you would know going in, and you would pick different secondaries and you would deploy differently and stuff like that. Like, I'm pretty sure I locked my Great Game one behind a building for the entire game when I deployed him, because he just wouldn't be able to get out.
yeah, pretty much.
But if I had to, go and take the middle of the board suddenly, I would like that big bulk there. But yeah, so shout out to the team as well. So I was running with Dave, Simon, Innes, who was our captain, Aiden, and other Simon. And yeah, everyone performed really well. We had a really good time. Our expectations were slightly different. We wanted to go in and get a podium place, probably third. We didn't quite achieve that. Our lists didn't perform the way we thought they'd perform, and we also had people who, like, so Dave and I both had 4 games on our lists, and then Aiden had like 4 games in ninth. So it was
Yeah,
it was interesting.
Aiden had a rough event,
He
sadly.
did, but I think he still had fun. It was awesome for him, and I hope he'll have fun at the next team event. I'm actually taking him down to Northern Warlords in January. At least that is still the current plan, so it should be awesome. And yeah, so we kind of our eyes were opened. I think as a team, I think we still backed ourselves. We still had a good event, a good showing. Got some very kind of close rounds, and it was good. Personally speaking, my job was to score to the matrix, and I did that 4 to 5 rounds. I actually upswinged one of the games, so I was quite proud with my performance. On lists like beasts, you don't really have the option to just suddenly hit the go button. You need to hit the go button 2 turns later to get the results. And sorry, 2 turns earlier, and I was able to upswing one of the matchups, so I was quite proud of my performance there. Shall we go through our round ones, Gavin?
Yeah, definitely.
So what did you have in round 1?
So I had a very nice 180 conscripts to deal with. Yeah, it was a really good round. My opponent was amazingly good fun. We went in. He had 180 conscripts plus some quad mortars. It was just one of those lists that had a lot of bodies to chew through, had a lot of board control, and when we'd done the matrix for it, I'd scored it reasonably low in terms of like what I could get out of it.
I
So
should say
going
that round
in,
1 is retrieval mission, by the way, everyone.
yeah.
Yep.
So hold 1, hold 2. So it was a little bit easier for me to score points than it maybe would have been otherwise. But basically, I looked at it and went, right, okay, this is a lot of bodies to move. I can chew through them eventually, but I didn't know how quickly I'd be able to chew through them. So we were playing the game, and I was just kind of keeping myself to my matrix prediction, kind of go from there. And then partway through the round, Ricky said, we're not on track at the moment, can you push? So obviously I then went for, okay, I'll try and get as many points as possible here, and managed to upswing from, I think I had it down as like a 14-point win to me. I managed to upswing to an 18-2. I had a really good turn 4, which managed to get me up ahead. But sadly, we lost the round by 1 point. It was really, really close. But obviously, hey ho, you can't predict what's going to happen in games. I think that's probably the round that, as a team, we were most gutted about, just because it was 1 point difference. and we're like, well, where could we have made this 1 point up? And like I actually spoke with my opponent about it and was like, oh yeah, if you hadn't done this, then that's a point there, and if I hadn't done this, then that's a point there. And it's just you have to try and think about it as in a positive light. But I really enjoyed the game. It was amazingly good fun, and congrats to the other team for winning that round against us.
Yep. So I was up against Wayne of Welland, England, in round one, and it's Admech, and yeah, it was awesome. I believe he said he was one of the newer players to the teaming and scene, so he did really well. He won 15-5. I was going to score between 4 and 7 points, and I scored 5 points, so I did my job for the team, which again is kind of, when you go from Drukari to playing a list like Beasts, you need to kind of think in different terms in winning the game. Otherwise, you're just going to get sad.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think in that one, I looked at it and went engage, knowing I wasn't going to score that highly engaged, but it was just a case of what else can I take? Banners and to the last with the beasts, with the 7 squad of beasts, 8 squad of beasts, and the Great and Green one. I knew if I just put the Great and Green one behind the building, he ain't ever going to die. There's only two flowers on the board at that point, and the chickens, they don't do that well until when a 5 of Invulnerable and a 4 of Full of Pain is around. You need kind of volume of fire, and pranes and chickens don't really provide that in the quantity that you need. I set myself up to try and get like a 7 on engaged North fronts. Oh, you're right, Gavin. Sorry, playing music.
Sorry.
Trying to get me copyrighted strike already.
Yep, always.
I knew eventually I would have to give up one of my 3 objectives, so I positioned myself to guard 2 of them. Admech can just pressure you too much that you can't hold an entire length of a board edge, really. And I just made sure that the Psychers were ready to kind of counterpunch as much as they could when stuff got close enough. I had to kind of leave armor up to the dogs. I was bodyguard holding one of the objectives with the Thousand Sons Sworn Guardians stratagem, something like that, Sworn Protectors. And eventually the Rostalkers came and showed him the error of his ways. But yeah, it was good. It was awesome. I think it was a Mars Admech archetype, but I'm not too sure. Yeah, Wayne, good player, rightful winner of that game, and really enjoyed it. I actually voted for him for my most sporting because we had such an awesome game. Yeah, I think we did it with the team did end up losing that round. But yeah, hey ho. It is what it is. We knew that was probably our toughest matchup of the weekend in team basis. So we did our best, and we kind of got our asses handed to us, but as it happens. Round 2, Matty.
Yeah,
who were you
round
up
2.
against? Sorry, not Matty.
I
was thinking because I was up against Matty in round 2. That's why I was.
Yeah.
Saying.
Yeah, you guys had a fun weekend of just playing all the Scottish teams, didn't you?
Yeah, round 2 and 3, we had the other 2 Scottish teams, and we said we could have just done this in Stirling rather than Telford. So who do you have, Gavin?
Yeah, so we had Team Vale as our second round opponents. Sorry, I forgot to say our first round opponents was Tom Layton's team, the Sammies and Jammies. They ended up coming 4th overall.
Nice.
So yeah, round 2 we had Team Vale. So I was playing against their Space Wolves player. Wasn't really a matchup I 100% wanted. It's Space Wolves. They're fast. They punch hard in combat. So I knew that if I was going to go up against them, I would have to probably go first and hope that I can kind of annihilate them quickly, which would then let me get on top of them on the points.
Sweep and clear, by the way, mission 32.
Yeah. So I knew that I was going to have a hard job in the early game. They obviously did the roll off. He won the roll off, made the early push for me, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be a tough game, just trying to get back into it. I managed to turn 1, Fuselav's completely fair, balanced unit, did 7 mortal wounds to a Wolfguard squad flying over the top of them. However, I then made a bit of a boo-boo. I hadn't realised that one of his Wolfguard was literally just behind the corner of the building. From my perspective, I couldn't see him, and I'd left my Fuselav 2.9 inches away from it. And basically, Those Wolf Guard immediately jumped out and smacked my plane.
Play by intention. Play by intention,
Yeah.
Gavin. Say,
It's
I will
fine.
be out of adventure range at every single movement against Space Wolves.
Yeah, I basically it was one of those that I'd looked at it and gone, right, they're all in that part of the building. If I put the plane there, it's in the middle of the board, that's fine. I'd literally left it 2.9 inches away because I hadn't realized where one of his models was. So it was one of those, he killed the plane, but, well, he didn't kill the plane in my turn, he killed the plane in his turn. So it wasn't that big a deal, but it obviously would be nice to have the fuselage just for the extra mortal wounds it could have done in the late game. Otherwise, the game, I basically had to spend a good 2 to 3 turns just getting on top of his list before I could actually push for the points. It ended up being a 13-7 to me. So still managed to win it, but obviously a much tougher game because I had to try and get on top of his army first before I could start making my push for all of the objectives and all of my secondary points. But very, very enjoyable. A very good game. And overall, we won that round, so
Nice,
can't
well done.
complain about that.
So we went into one of the other Scottish teams at the event, Team Scotch Broth. Matty, was my opponent. Go watch the pre-event vlog for a full breakdown of Matty's list where he did it there. But it's Custodes and Guard and pistol dudes and Telemans and all the good stuff. And as I said, it's sweeping clear. So Beasts into Custodes and sweeping clear is basically the two of us frontliner armies and fight over the middle for 5 turns in a very aggressive, no one really dying battle.
Yeah.
We had a little skirmish over on one of my objectives. That I kind of so if my home objective was down here, middle was over there. This one that's up in this corner, I forward deployed a unit of Nurglings, sent a unit of Furies to reinforce. Matty then brought over the course of 2 turns some Venetari to kind of just out obsec me, because 3 obsec models versus 5 out obsec models wins. That's why I wanted to put the Furies over there, just to put 8 models on the objective. But the Custodes will eventually just kill the Furies quite easily, and the Nurglings will take them a bit longer to chew through, but they'll do it. So I had to send over a unit of Frogs, so that kind of curved my scoring a little bit. After talking through the game with Matty, I should have just sent that unit of Frogs up there to begin with, and from turn 1, and then he can't really go and contest because the Frogs eventually do kill Custodes. If they can get the rerolls off, if they can get the mortal wounds going, it's kind of over 2-3 combats they will get rid of a unit of 5 Custodes with their damage 2 and mortal wounds on 6s. Matty did make one mistake where he's kind of suicided a Scottish Guardsman instead of just standing them in the middle of the center objective. So instead of putting them in the middle, he went off on a little adventure within 3 inches
He's
of army.
absolutely kicking himself over that one.
He said it's a 7-point swing. I cannot remember enough of this game to kind of confirm or deny that. I trust Matty, so if he says it, it must be true. But we end up in a 10-10 draw. I could have probably frontlined a lot more stuff. It's kind of what I realized in that game. The damage output wasn't really significant. I was advised to deploy outside of the Venetari range, which I think is a 30-inch threat range.
It's quite a big threat range.
12-inch move, 18-inch pistol, so 30 inches.
Yeah.
So that kind of pushed me quite far back. I could have frontlined a lot more stuff, and I think I would have been okay with that, particularly because if they're kind of getting in range, then it's fine as long as they're not killing the Great and Clean one too quickly. The Great and Clean one, by the way, was on 4 wounds. A Telement charged him. Did 12 damage through my Invulnerable. Then I made 10 Feel No Pains.
Chris.
Which I think then brought back like a frog or something like that as well, just to rub the salt in the wounds, and it was just, yes, Nurgle blessed me. But yeah, it was a really awesome game. Came down to the wire with a 10-10 draw, and we ended up winning that round. That was our only win for the team. So then round 3, which I will say the mission now because I have a good host, was overrun. And
yes.
That's where we found the other Scottish team. This
Woo!
guy's team.
Yeah.
Team Glasgow Kiss,
Glasgow
right?
Kiss.
Glasgow Kiss.
Yeah.
And we paired off into each other, so this will be a very easy talk through.
Yeah.
So, what were your thoughts going into that game when you were paired into me? How happy were you?
Well, I was very happy I got paired into you. Because, bearing in mind, I'd just beat, not that long ago, I'd been at Chris's event, and I'm like, I didn't do well at Chris's event. I need to prove myself here.
Oh, you still need to prove yourself. You're playing versus beasts. That.
Yeah, but, like, it was one of those, I went into that game and I'm like, I'm taking every point I can in this game.
Yeah.
But because of the secondaries you picked, so in that game,
I went to the last banners and warp ritual, I think.
yeah, you had To the Last, Raise Banners, and Warp Ritual, and I went for Engage in All Fronts, Raise Banners, and To the Last. Which, To the Last was a little bit risky on my part, because my To the Last points was one of my Ranger squads, and my 2 Stratoraptors. So the Ranger squad's relatively safe against Chris. He's quite a slow-moving army. Obviously, it's going to take him a while to get to them, unless I'm being absolutely careless with them. Odds were they were going to survive that game. However, the 2 planes, I could have basically just had them just whizzing across each other on my back lines, just completely out of range of your stuff. But because of how the terrain was laid out and where the objectives were, I knew I needed to get you off the middle objective because it was a whole 2, whole 3 mission. So it's like, if I can get them off that middle objective, I'm going to start denying them primary points, which is then going to swing the points in my favor more. So I was using the Stratoraptors basically on strafing runs into his lines, and then running back again, and then strafing into his lines and running back again.
The thing with that is, ideally, I want to position Araman and the Exotic Sorcerer within equidistant range of 2 planes. Gavin, so I smite one of them. Gavin uses the 4-up.
Yeah, this is an admin stratagem.
Gavin never had 2 planes in my deployment zone.
I was throwing them in one at a time,
and which was the correct thing to do. But also, I had to use the Araman eventually when you kill the rubrics to do Warp Ritual, and that's a lot of damage gone. And Exotic Sorcerer had to raise banners in turn 1 because of where I had to put the Furies in order to do things.
Yeah.
And, when you're talking raise banners, I only have 5 infantry units in that list, and it's just kind of, when if I had gone first, it would be a different story. I could have raised the banners, and then when Gavin goes in, as in the earliest opportunity, I could have gone and done some damage.
I think out of all the games,
the mistake that really swung it for me was the intervention into your chickens. So Gavin kind of yeeted forward a squad of chickens to see and shoot some Nurglings, which I think was the correct move.
Yeah. So what I did was I had my unit of infiltrators. I had 2 infiltrators on either flank. I had 1 unit in the center. So the 1 unit in the center had run up to deal with Araman and the Rubric Marines, fight them through the building. The other 2 squads positioned themselves on the flanks. So in turn 3, I think, 1 squad hopped onto the objective that your Great and Clean one was on. So they managed to nick that from you for a turn.
Yeah.
Then
off.
The other unit then hopped onto your other objective, I think a turn later. And my plan was I hightailed the unit of chickens up the side of the board to get line of sight on the Nurglings, because my thought was, if I can kill the Nurglings, it was a risk. It was one of those plays. It was a bit of a Hail Mary, but I'm like, it's not going to cost me anything if it doesn't work. But if it works, it's going to swing the points. So I shot into the Nurglings, 2 out of the 3 died. So unfortunately, it didn't quite work in that situation, because I was trying to get the Nurgling shot off, which is his obsec, and then I hold the objective off him, and he gets no points there.
Yeah.
I deliberately positioned within 3 inches of the frogs. I knew that was a risk I was going to take, but I was like, we'll see how this matchup goes. And you slightly took the bait and heroically intervened into them.
So the thing is, that intervention is a greedy intervention, 100%. Those 2 chickens do not threaten that 8 frogman unit, even with all your planes over there. They still do not threaten.
Yeah.
For the course of the game, those frogs would have been fine without any stratagems.
Yeah.
Even with dice spiking and stuff, that's how resilient frogs are. But I thought 2 or 3 turns of combat should kill those chickens. I'm 2 damage. I can mortal wounds on 6s, and actually running the maths, looking at it within us after the game, my assumption was correct, even with you triggering the extra armor save in the 3rd round of combat. The chickens should have still died. They never died.
Yeah,
and what
they
I should have
sat
done
there for
instead
ages.
was I should have when you intervene towards like the closest mod or something like that. So I could have stayed still with the back frogs and just gone on with less. So I still could have done it, or I could have just not taken the bait, gone and dealt with the infiltrators, and then you have to put something else over there to take that judge from me, and then that would have been a 3-point swing because it was 3 turns you stopped me from scoring, I think, or something like that. It was a two or 3 turns less of primary, which would have gotten us 1 or 2 or 3 more points over the course of the game in terms of the WTC score, and that actually would have won my team the round. In the end, because we were
so
1 or 2 points short of victory.
I think we were on a draw. We ended up, the 2 teams drew, but I think if you looked at scoring, we were 3 points off of getting a loss.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't got the 18 points I had got, if it had been a 15-5, which was probably the predicted matchup for it, if I hadn't got the 18-2 that I got, the team loses the round.
But ultimately, that's probably the worst mission for me to play Admech on as well.
Yeah, it's a hold 2, hold 3, which is one of the worst ones for you. The only other one that was in the pack that would hurt you against me was Vital Intelligence. Yeah. That would hurt you as well.
But then at least you'd be kind of closer to me in that regard.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to just sit back. You'd have to come forward towards me.
Yeah, it was a strange game because it was one of those, like, I knew I wasn't going to kill you because I know how resilient frogs are. So I shot the one unit that was in the open.
Yeah, because
I actually killed it off surprisingly quickly.
I did do the math that is it enriched rounds for your Vanguard?
Yeah. Yeah.
The average is you do kill 3 to 4 frogs.
So it was I killed it surprisingly quickly.
That's
but
why
I was
I
like,
hid the other 2 units.
Yeah. I knew I wasn't gonna kill anything else. So I was like, right, okay, my whole goal here is I know I'm going to get pretty much max points for like my scoring wise because of what I had taken as my scoring. So it's just a case of just stop Chris getting as many points as possible.
I think if we were to play the game again on the same board, I would deploy the 8 unit of beasts out in the open as well, and then rush them into the building where Armin and the cultists and the not the cultists, the rubrics went, just to stop them being shot at. You would kill like 3 or 4, and then they'll be small to hide in the building. Be quite happy there.
Yeah.
And then like it'll be fine. Probably put the Great Inhuman out to soak some damage. I think I could have, in general, I could have deployed more aggressively in day 1, but I was learning the list at the same time. But yeah, good game.
I think out of all of the games I had in the weekend, there was 2 that definitely stood out to me as I felt I played in myself really quite well. Some of the best games that I feel like I've done, and that was one of them.
Yeah,
because
you played well.
I think I hit all the points I needed to hit to stop you gain points. So
yep, no doubt about it, Gavin. You were the better player in that situation, and yeah, well done. I'll get you next time
Cheers, mate. It was a good game.
When I'm not on PC, I'll get you.
Sure.
So
we'll just wait till the Admech nerf comes.
Yeah, I'll play you in January. How's that sound?
You really don't want that if I'm coming with you to the team event.
So, day 2, round 4, mission is Battle Lines.
Day 2, after having much meatness on the Saturday evening.
Oh yeah, so good. Callum, shout out for that restaurant again. We went to this.
Callum, you're amazing. That was spectacular.
All you can eat for like £22 or something like that.
Oh, it was so good.
I'm still full from that meal. Or maybe it was a Nando's I had today. Gavin, your matchup. What did you have?
Yeah, so in my round 4, I was up against Nurgle again. Except this time it was 6 Mephitic Blight Haulers, 3 Plague Drones, 2 with Flesh Mowers, and then a Plague Burst Crawler. It was one of those lists, I kind of looked at it and I was like, This doesn't seem great, but when I actually got into the game, I realized what it was doing, and it was quite. It had a function, and probably doesn't work in a singles event, but in a team event, it definitely had a place. Um, so basically, what I found was I managed to go first, but basically hidden everything. It was only 4 objectives for the mission, so because I got to go first, I pushed onto the central 2 objectives and went, right, okay, you're not getting these all game. So that limited his primary, but actually trying to kill him, because he'd taken to the last, actually trying to kill him was really hard, because it turns out there's a stratagem on Mephitic Blighthaulers that you reduce all incoming shots by 1, which when you've got 2-shot las cannons, turns into 1-shot las cannons. So your firepower literally halves into the Blighthaulers, and it's just really hard to take them out. Eventually, I managed to take out all but one of his units for his Blighthaulers, so it did. I did manage to get there eventually, but it just took a little bit too long in terms of points that I wanted. So I think that game was a 15-5 to me in the end. Again, a very enjoyable game. My opponent hadn't really played AdMech much, so I was trying to like talk him through what AdMech did as I was doing it. And obviously, while I was going competitive and trying to do as much as possible, I was obviously like giving him pre-warning of like some of the abilities I had,
Oh yeah,
because
100%.
some of the AdMech abilities just sound ridiculously stupid, so I need to give him
Well,
pre-warning about them before I use them.
not just for AdMech, it's for any army. In WTC, it specifically says you cannot catch the out, you cannot gotcha.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
you should let people, like, say, I don't know, your opponent was playing dreadnoughts and they want to use Wisdom of the Ancients and it's in the shooting phase. It
Yeah,
says in the back, you need to go back and let them do it.
yeah,
Obviously, if they've shot half a dreadnoughts already, tough. You've already shot
yeah,
stuff and done stuff. But no, WTC has a very high emphasis on sportsmanship.
yeah. It
Um,
was like for example, in my round 2, I'd completely forgotten I had the Solar Flare relic, which is my redeploy ability, because I hadn't used it round 1 at turn 1 at all because of what I was up against. So round 2, I went in halfway through the game. I went, "Oh, I've got this relic," and the guy went, "Oh, it would have been useful to have known that at the start." And I went, "Tell you what, it's not actually gonna make a difference here. But I'll remember to point it out to people in the future."
yeah,
So
but equally there is the responsibility of your opponent to ask the right questions. Do you have a
yeah,
redeploy? Is a very common ability in Night Edition, and it's one of the questions that I ask every single game. Can you redeploy your units? And if you go yes, cool. When is it is it start of the battle? Is it end of the deployment phase? Is it middle of the game? There's a list of questions, and I will be doing a video on like how to approach games in the next few weeks. And I'll have a list of questions in my head which I run through every single game. If I'm not,
yeah,
if I know the answer already, I don't bother. But if it's
yeah.
a case of, hey, this is AdMech and they probably have this ability somewhere, and I need to find out if they do. Um, so yeah, I was up against Adam of. I'm not going to say the full name, but it's Steel Welsh Dragons. The acronym,
Pop deeping.
I'll let you work it out. WDPPAIAGAITTW and GCCN.
Yeah, that one.
Thousand Suns. So this is the Thousand Suns Dreadnought army. Looks really awesome. We kind of highlighted it in the pre-event vlog. It's got like 2 Hellbrutes. It's got Leviathans in there. It's got the Brick of Terminators. They can all teleport because they're all cult of Jupiter, and it's just awesome list. And we had a really nice game. Adam did kind of struggle with clock time a little bit. I wasn't sure what to do because Innes was like, "Hey, playing the clock." I was like, "Cool. Does that mean I just make him stop?" I was like, "Innes, can you just come over and say what's fair at this point?" Because I had already done. I went first. I had like 3 minutes after my clock, and Innes just said, "Finish off do what you need to do in your last turn." And so we rolled out a quick combat, and we just checked that he could redeploy something to do. Rod in one of my quarters, which I should have really screened out. But that's just kind of the nature of the beast. You learn those things. I thought I had screened it out, and I didn't check because I was just so confident I already had it screened out from a brick of 10 cultists. It did like quite a large footprint, and I thought I'd sealed that bit off, but also didn't want to just let him kill a character for free, because he definitely could have killed a character in the psychic phase where that teleport would have happened. So yeah. Actually, no, I think he used Umber for Crystal. So hey ho, lessons learned. The name of that the name of that game was really Death X or Twist of Fate. When you're playing demons and you get Death X, it's just not fun. I wasn't counting, so when I did my pairings, I wasn't counting on him using the cannot deny on that every turn. I thought he would do it on a psychic action instead, because I had denies, and I just wasn't counting that. And whenever I tried to deny the psychic action, he took mental interrogation, or psychic interrogation as it's now called. Big change. I just couldn't roll higher than a 4. Even with CP.
It's always fun when dice do that to you.
There was one mistake I made in that game, I felt. So I went to the last. I knew I was going to lose the Great and Clean one. He Death X the Great and Clean one, removing its invulnerable save. Still took his entire gunline army to kill him. Tanking those 4-ups. So much fun. I kind of moved the two squads of To the Last Frogs into a building in the mid board, getting a pretty dominant foothold on one of the objectives. Then he put I deep struck in a unit of Furies to do Rod, and the Chaos Spawn came to try and take them out. It failed because it's a Chaos Spawn. So the frogs went out, wrapped the Chaos Spawn. That was really awesome. 4 frog. This is the squad of 8 frogs. So there was a wall. There's a big building like that. After the wrap happened in the combat, I had 4 frogs here and 4 frogs here. So 4 frogs out, inside and outside of the building. When I was taking casualties in the fight phase, I stupidly, and I cannot tell you why, took the casualties from the inside of the building. I think that my head was, I need to fight for this objective, but I'm AP 0 fighting Terminators.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So I should have gone the other way, and then the frogs could have fallen out of combat and made the Terminators come and deal with them to finish off the To the Last, or fight into a fresh squad of frogs which he can't see, so he can't Death X, or at least without putting characters at risk of just dying to my other stuff. And it's just so that I could have upswinged it even further, but I did have that down as a low 2 or a 1, because I knew it's Thousand Suns and it can do a lot of damage to me, because it can be active at every single phase of damage potential.
Yeah.
But I got 7 points, so I was happy with that.
That's good. Well done.
And on battle lines as well, it's kind of a rough mission for me when if I can't split up my army. But yeah, I think we got a narrow loss in that round, or a loss. We lost.
Yeah,
it.
Dave, I think struggled in that round. In a coin flip matchup, basically.
I think he went second in a coin flip.
Yeah, which not much you can do about that.
Onwards to the last round. Hi ho, silver away. So this is where team events can get super weird, because we were back on, I think, like second table or top table, something like that.
Yeah.
Even though we were quite low down in the rankings, as we were 1 win, 1 draw, and 2 losses, playing like the number 2 team or the number 1 team, or a team that's way higher than us, but because eventually we were playing a 10-player GT.
Yeah.
In terms of pairings. Do you want to go through your game quickly?
Yeah, so on the subject of coin flips and matchups, turns out my round 5 was basically a coin flip matchup. So I was up against Deathwatch, who we had already found out had just 20-0'd an AdMech player. And we went, oh, bugger, right, okay. What the heck did he do? And we were trying to desperately work out what he'd done, and we kind of thought we had an idea, but it was one of those, there's not much I can do about it if it goes off, because it's basically he turbo boosts Chaplain up the lines, and then he can teleport a unit over to the Chaplain, so they're always gonna have be 9 inches away from your line because of how fast the Chaplain can turbo boost.
Yeah. This is
and then
intelligence, by the way.
Yeah. So he's always got to be 9 inches away from your line, and then with a plus 2 inch charge, it's a 7 inch charge with rerolls. So it was one of those like there's not much I could do to get around that. Um, he won the coin flip, and I just looked at him and went, I immediately just said to Ricky, I'm like, this is like a 1 for me. There's not much I can do here. He turbo boosted in. He managed to get another unit, managed to like do really good advance in charge rolls because he activated a white scar ability, so he could advance in charge. His unit of infiltrators did surprisingly high amounts of damage to my Vanguard squad, so they were down to like 10 men in like turn 1. So I was looking at after his turn 1 before I'd even done anything. I'd lost a unit of 20 Rangers, I'd lost half my Vanguards, I lost almost all my infiltrators, and I was like, I am on the ropes here. And luckily, I told him about the solar flare at the start of the game because it was my saving grace. Because of the way he moved his squads, he kind of moved, and it was obviously diagonal deployments. He'd move them across the board, but they kind of like shifted to one corner to attack my units. So I teleported my final ranger squad to the other corner and then use my 3 planes, which he just couldn't interact with, to basically shoot the heck out of his squads as they made their way towards that ranger squad. So he just didn't get in combat with that ranger squad for the rest of the game. And eventually, I killed almost everything he had, bar 1 model, just purely through like attritional damage. But I could only swing it back to a 15-5 because of how bad hit I got turn 1. I couldn't swing it higher than that because I was always playing catch up in that game. But really, really enjoyable. The guy played really, really well. But it's a game I'm really proud of because of I was so far down and having to try and pull it back to get points.
You actually played the same person that I played at LGT.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike
Yeah.
Costello,
No.
Vanguard Tactics.
Yeah.
Awesome
Their
player,
team.
really nice guy.
He's a really nice guy. Their team actually ended up coming second as well, so I'm not overly disappointed we lost that round either.
It's pretty much the same list you run into me, and it's not a pleasant list. It can get in your face so quickly.
It's just in your face turn 1. Like if I go first turn, based on the amount of damage I start doing to him, I give turn 1, there's a good chance I win that game quite substantially, just because of how much damage I can do. But obviously with him going first, it just became a case of he just mulched everything he got in combat with, so then I had to try and like pick up the pieces later on. So
yep.
Also helped on that with Vital Intelligence, you hold the objective when you move away from it. So he can basically sit on an objective for a turn with that unit and then just go, right, okay, I'm just going to leave it now. And you can't get to me because you have like 3 units left. And they're all trapped in one corner.
Yeah, so I was up against Alex of Team England A-Holes, and he was running a Death Watch Raven Guard soup. And yeah, we had a nice game, Vital Intelligence, and it was basically he kind of split his army into 2 halves. So I just kept one half at bay with psychic powers, and then I sent the frogs into the other half, and I just frontlined other frogs. So fuck it. It's the last round. We know we've done badly as a team. I just want to experiment and see how much punishment I can actually take. And it took him like 3 turns to kill the Great Unclaimed one. It was great. And the Great Unclaimed one just wandered forward and started doing Warp Ritual in the center. That's my new favorite secondary for that list. And when he eventually died, I think that I seriously did a sort of rubric to do it first because I was like, I don't really need to end this game. I don't need a bodyguard hold anything. And they can be quite tanky when they're just facing effectively 1 damage weapons, because the Redemptors aren't going to sink plasma cannons into shooting them, and they're in a forest, and I can reduce incoming damage from his Contemptors. So I wasn't really too worried about them, and I reckon I could probably tank a turn here. And if you sent me a squad of Vanguard veterans to deal with them, I would just go on a munch. He did send up forward a squad of 5 Vanguard veterans to charge a squad of frogs. Didn't go well for him. He killed 1 frog. I got 5 Vanguard veterans. Before he even did, I used a mortal wound strategy, but had like 8 mortal wounds banked.
Ouch.
But it didn't matter because he couldn't roll a 2 up.
Yeah.
No, it was good. It was a good game. It ended up in the 13-7. Kind of what I predicted what would have happened. Even though this was not one of the best missions for me, I went engage, what ritual, and to the last. I want to say I knew I was going to trade 5 points to the last for 5 points of primary or something along those lines. Data intercept might have been better. I didn't realize at the time you can actually data intercept with any unit. So Epidemius cavalry could have done it in the back quarter. Would have been better than engage, but that is kind of the nature of the beast. At the end of the day, you don't kind of realize these things till you're in hindsight. But yeah, looking forward to our next game, be it on Frogs or Drakari or whatever. But yeah, it was good to play against a good Astartes player and see Death Watch and different flavors of those kind of lists. So the lessons that I kind of learned going forward is so particularly when it comes to like things like heroic interventions, think what is this greedy? Is this my win condition? Because your chickens were not my win condition.
Exactly.
The infiltrators were. Because I was like, even if I'd fallen out of combat and gotten myself onto the objective, you would just charge me the next turn. Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And also, don't lists like Frogs. It's very easy to go into an autopilot mode. Because you're just taking damage. That's all. That's really the main part of your time. In fact, the opponent put me on the clock more than a couple of times, and I was fine for time because my turns went so quickly. So really think what model you're picking up, and if you make a mistake, it's WTC. You can probably backtrack it as long as both players agree. And also really pay attention to the matrices as well, like these pairing matrices as well. And when teams don't just go, oh, it's AdMech, therefore it's this. Look at the thing, break it down. I did try to do that, but definitely when you got to like the 7th or 8th team there, you're just like, whatever, man. It's Drukari. It's gonna come kill me. Set me down for a 2 or a 3 or It's really break it down. I did make a habit of checking within us, and starting on day 1 when our attitude to things as a team was a bit different. So trying to go for the win. Kind of around about my turn 2, turn 3, because that's when I knew I could start to push. If it was turn 4, it's kind of too late for the beast, so I made sure to go and check with my captain. Hey, do I need to go here, or can I just sit back and score safe? And the answer was typically just be safe. I think Innes understands if the beasts start to walk out, they can actually die. How about you, Gavin? What were your lessons that you learned?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, we were very happy with our position overall. Like, we ended up coming 6th overall, so very happy for us. We were on track going into the 5th round, that if we'd beaten our 5th round opponents, we could have podiumed, but it wasn't really our aim going into the event, so I'm not too disappointed about that. I think one of the big things we learned as a team was the matrices. We had 2 different matrices, so one was if you pick board, and one was if you don't pick board. The don't pick board one basically never used because we'd all just gone really negative on it. So I think one of the things as a team we felt is we were all maybe a little bit too cagey with some of our predictions. Like, I didn't particularly have many predictions over 14 with AdMech. I think part of that was from experience of AdMech before. While I've won games with AdMech really, really big, I really struggled in that last competition with AdMech, so I was like, I'm just putting these down a little bit cagey just to be on the safe side, but I probably could have upped them a little bit. Overall, I think my actual playing on the day, I was very, very happy with. I think I played the games about as well as I could. Had 1 or 2 mistakes here or there, like I've already mentioned the playing. There's a couple of times I maybe could have done a better 3rd secondary, but it's minor things that I can work on. I didn't think there was anything major I really screwed up on, so I'm overall very, very happy with it. Yeah, it was a very, very good event. I really enjoyed myself. So
yeah, I think that for me going forward, this has really highlighted the importance of practice games only having
Yeah.
4 games in the beasts, I think, was a bit of a mistake. I should have. I think I owed it to the team to find more time to find more games. Even if it's on things like TTS, it's still practice. You're still going to limit test and how
Yeah.
much damage can beasts take in the scenario? What can I expect for like 1 or 2 beasts to live behind the wall and then just be very sneaky and not go out again until Great Green One heals back a few beasts and stuff like that. I think that was super important to me, and I think I'll make sure that I always have about 10 games on list before a tournament. That's kind of where I feel properly comfortable. My next tournament is coming up is going to be I've closed ranks next weekend, which is a 1-day RTT run by Innes for Team Scotland. It's just three rounds. I'll be taking Drukari, and I'm going to be using that as practice for Leicester, which is my next big event, and that's in December. And I'm thinking of taking Kronos Drukari, trying that out, see how that works on those weirdly light boards with the weird obscuring rules. But yeah, it's going to be fun. I've got a list that I'm kind of happy with, and I'm pretty sure be running. I'm testing it out on Sunday against Matty. He's going to come down with some orcs, so I can see how it plays into one of the better armies. One of the takeaways from me was just seeing where the meta is right now, because you kind of got to see all of the meta
Yeah,
at this event
with the best players.
So I now have a list of like, these are the armies I need to be concerned about as a Kronos Drukari player, and how can I handle them, and how can I build this into my list.
I think weirdly what I found was a lot of people make comments. I had quite a different AdMech list from a lot of the AdMech players.
Yes, you did.
The AdMech building blocks are always the same. You're wanting squads of infantry with vehicles, usually Iron Striders, and some planes. I think out of all of the AdMech players, there was only one player had less planes than me. I only had 3. Most people had 4. I also had 3 big blocks of infantry, which a couple of my opponents said absolutely terrified them, whereas they said any of the other AdMech players, they don't have the big blocks of infantry. I also think I was a bit more survivable than the other AdMech players, so I actually had most of the AdMech games as a slight victory in my favor on the Matrix, just purely because I had more survivability and tankiness than they did. Yep. So, like, if they went first, I can survive a bit more than them and then dish out as equally hard as they can. So it was one of those things, like, it was interesting looking at the meta, because I don't know if the other AdMech players had, obviously I wasn't in their team, so I don't know, but I don't know if they'd specifically gone that direction for the team kind of side of things, whereas we'd kind of gone for, right, Gavin, get as many points as possible, go with the list you think is best. So I didn't have any of the horses, completely forgotten their name now. Anyway, the Cerberus Raiders, that's the one. I didn't have any Cerberus Raider units. I don't think they particularly do well for me, so I just didn't run them. Instead, I was using the Taraxi as like my rod unit and things like that, and it worked out really, really well. It was really nice to play against all these players who are top level, and I was really pleased with how I played in my matchups. So I'm quite pleased I was actually able to mix it at that level, because I wasn't expecting to. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll close out the video here, as we're starting to encroach on the 1 hour mark. But yeah, so I just want to say thank you to Innes for bringing me down in his team, and thank you to the rest of Team Scotland who've helped organise this and organise this all going down.
Yeah.
And my teammates who bared with me making terrible frog jokes over the course of the event. And thank you to all my opponents. Really awesome to play, everyone. Nice to see some friendly faces down there as well. And yeah, looking forward to the next one, because this is going to be a yearly thing.
It was really nice just to see so many Scottish players down there as well, because I don't think the Scottish scene does, aside from the guys that play in Team Scotland, the Scottish scene doesn't really migrate out of Scotland.
No, it was.
You know what I mean? So it was good to see 18 players going down there and actually giving it our all and doing quite well into some really tough matchups.
Oh yeah, we'll be back, and I think every single team is going to shift up by 1 spot every year until we're 1, 2, 3.
So does that mean that we're beating Avon again next year.
Maybe. Who knows? All I'm going to say is I hope that whichever Scottish team plays Team Avon, which I think will be permanently the Scotland 1, if you can number the teams, basically whichever team Innes is on, or Simon is in, I hope whichever Scottish teams play them, they give them a really good game and give them a run for their money, because that means the scene is doing really well, and that's what matters at the end of the day. If the scene's doing well, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if that means that we have to lose to them, so be it. And I'm saying we as if I'm going to be on the next year. Who knows at this point, right? Right, we're gonna love you and leave you, and catch you at the next event. Catch you at Close Ranks if you're going to be there. And Leicester, if you're going to be there, Clash of Alba, I'll be popping my head in on Sunday. I think you're going to that one.
Yeah, I think I'm planning on going there. And then Northern Warlords in the new year.
Yes, that's going to be awesome. God knows what we're going to take to that, because apparently in December there's a little update to the game, which should hopefully fix a few armies.
Orcs.
Well, I'm thinking Orcs, Dracarian, Admech. If they get balanced, I'll be happy. He says as a Dracarian player.
I mean, Tau will obviously get fixed to get a 1 point increase on the Riptide.
Nah, Crisis, come on. That's a big baddie there. Anyway, peace out everyone, and catch the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.